Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Double Bonus Show. I'm your host, Jake Malensik. Today, we've got an interesting thing to talk about. It's the changing of the guard in the Big East, a new top dog, and I'm going to tell you how they got here, what's their story been, and then what does their future tournament outlook look like. It's the team with the nation's second longest winning streak. It's the St. John's Red Storm. Second longest win streak in the country right now with 10, right behind the Akron Zips. Have not lost since they played in Omaha against Creighton on December 31st in a 57-66 barn burner out there in Omaha. This team is so fascinating, so interesting. Fifth place they were picked. They were picked fifth in the preseason Big East poll, the coaches poll. They got 70 points, right? They were behind UConn, Creighton, Xavier, Marquette. Those were the four teams ahead of them. Right now, obviously, they're ahead of all of those teams, and all of everybody else is kind of jumbled in. But there's a couple of reasons why this team is where they are. One's obviously Rick Pitino, because he's a fantastic coach. He's a program builder. Go look at every place he's been. Go look at the second year under Pitino, whether it's Kentucky, Louisville, Iona, and now St. John's. The second year that he's there is the second year that he's there, he always elevates them. He builds your program. He takes you to the top. And that's what he's done here. He's taken St. John's to the top of the Big East, back kind of where we want them to be. Kind of, it's fun when St. John's is good. They've got one of the, outside of Madison Square Garden, like their home arena is really fun. Carnesecca Arena is like an awesome, awesome venue. It's one of my favorite courts to watch basketball at. Unfortunately, they don't play there like as much. They play at they play at the Mecca. So like obviously Madison Square Garden is pretty cool too, but they've got they got fun arenas that they play at. Like when this team's good, it's good for college basketball. What have they been doing? Well, let's talk about that. And they have been it's such a fascinating, when you look at their KenPom page, you look at their games, they are just here to defend their asses off, and they're going to make sure that you don't score over 65. In my prep for this video, one of the things that I was super fixated on was St. John's and the race to 65, or the race to 63, even the race to 68, somewhere in that range, from 63 to 68 is kind of where they love to play, right? If they can get to that number, then they're going to be good. They have some outliers, obviously, for their own, but for the sake of this argument and for the sake of this video, they're fascinating because I think 8 times out of 10, 8.5 times out of 10, like I guess I could just say 85% of the time, 90%, whatever you want to call it. If they can win the race to 65, they're going to win the game. And I know that sounds, at the surface level, that doesn't give you a lot of information. Where you're like, yeah, obviously, if one team gets to 1 point margin first, they're probably going to win. And yeah, that's true. But the point that I'm trying to make is if they can get, it's not even really the race to 65. If St. John's gets to 65 at all, you've probably lost because they're not going to give up that many. They're not going to let you get to 65. So that's why I'm calling this their magic number. It's somewhere, I don't know the exact number. I don't know the exact math. But for me, if they get to 65, they're going to beat you. Why? Well, they have the number 2 most efficient defense in the country, first off. Second off, they turn you over a ton, right? They don't let you shoot twos. Teams shoot 43.4% from two against them. They block. They're 7th in the country in blocks. Zuby Ejiofor is just an awesome, awesome rim protector. He's one of the best blockers in the whole country. I mean, he's 131st in block percentage. They have a guard, Kadari Richmond, who's got a 3.4 block percentage, which is crazy good for a guard. Vince Uwuchukwu, Uwuchukwu, I think is how you say his last name. 7'1" junior. He's got a 9.3 block percentage off the bench. Now the minutes, he doesn't qualify from a minutes percentage per standpoint to be nationally ranked, but that's an incredible number. It's an incredible number for the minutes that he plays. Uwuchukwu, I believe. If I'm butchering that, please let me know in the comments. I've really, really tried. He's such a fun defensive player that I want to get his name right, but it's just such a really tough name for me. But Zuby and Kadari have been awesome at this too. Some of the best block percentages in the country. They're the seventh best total team in block percentage. They steal the ball from you. They slow your game down. Their whole goal is to slow your game down. And they actually like prefer tempo. Like they want to move, but they want to slow your offensive possession down. It's interesting. They want to force you to take tough shots, not get open looks early in the shot clock. If they've gotten you to 15 seconds in the shot clock, you're probably lost, right? You probably aren't getting a shot off in that possession because that's what their defense does to you. It's kind of this where you have to get your first shot off. If you don't get the first shot off, you're not going to get another good enough look against this team. And that's kind of where they've lived. That's kind of what they've done all season long. They've played bully ball. They just don't allow you to score that much. Now, flip side of that, they don't score that much either. Their offense, 83rd in the nation in efficiency. That's fine. It's above average, right? They're like 4 points in offense and point. They're like 4 points above average in offensive efficiency, according to KenPom. Where do they struggle though? Well, they don't shoot that well from the free throw line or from the 3-point line. One of the worst one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the country, bottom half in the country in free throw percentage. Now on the flip side, they don't take a lot of threes. They're 346th in 3-point make percentage, 347th in 3-point take percentage. So they don't take a lot. They don't make a lot. That's great coaching from Pitino. He knows his team's strengths. Hey, guys, don't chuck from three. You're not going to make it. But they don't make from the free throw line a lot. They don't go to the free throw line a lot. Their offense is reliant on getting to the paint, getting mid-range jumpers, getting tough baskets in traffic in the paint, and getting offensive rebounds. There's probably not two better players in the Big East than RJ Lewis and Kadari Richmond at getting to their spot in the mid-range to paint area and getting their shot. They're two of the best in the conference. I would put Kadari, I'd actually put both of them up there in terms of like 2-pointers, getting your shot from two. They're two of the best in the nation. They're just really good at it. The problem is, this is a team that doesn't have a lot of that. There's not a lot of offensive threats on this team, right? They don't have really a single threat from behind the arc. Their best 3-point shooter is, I believe, Davon Smith. He's shooting 37% on 59 attempts. Now, off the bench, Brady Dunlap is shooting a little bit higher than that, but he's not really a focal point of the offense. He doesn't really get used that much. So they have guys that can shoot a little bit, but you look at some of their main guys, like RJ Lewis shoots, 26% from the 3-point line. That's not really a high number, right? I mean, Kadari Richmond, 21% on 28 attempts. Zuby Ejiofor, who's their center, so not really out shooting threes, 23% on 26 shots. Simeon Wilcher, who I think was hoping was going to be able to hit a few more threes. He was a 41% free throw shooter last year, a 3-point shooter last year on 24 attempts. So they thought, okay, maybe if he can shoot more this year, if we get him more involved in the offense, he could do that, and he hasn't. Right? He took 24 last year. He's only made 23 this year out of the 79 that he's taken. Now, he's good in other facets. He's obviously a good defender, and he can hold his own on the perimeter and do all the things that the rest of the St. John's team can do. But it's been very difficult to come by for them in terms of 3-point shots, in terms of shooting that's not twos. How do they succeed offensively? They don't turn the ball over a lot. They're above average. They're not great. They're not elite. They're 70th in the nation, so they're fine. 15th in offensive rebound percentage. They don't really, like I said, their turnover percentage is okay, but it's also just a matter of they don't force bad shots. They don't take stuff that they don't think they're going to make. They're very selective. They work to get a good shot. Now, again, their tempo is actually sort of fast, and their possession length is a little bit quicker because they're searching for a good shot. They know that they have guys that can go create them, but it's so funneled into the 2-point line that your offense is not going to be as efficient if you can't shoot threes because 3 is better than 2. We all know that. But they also don't really get to the free throw line and don't shoot free throws very much. So a lot of their offense is just let's hunt for something quickly from 2, and then if we don't get it, we're just going to throw it into the paint and hope we get something. And it doesn't look that bad. It actually looks a little bit more fluid than that. The way I'm describing it is not giving St. John's enough credit for the fluidity of the offense, because they have good passers and they have a good team. They have good players. It's just their offense is not as strong as it could be. Where does that matter? Why does that matter? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that everybody knows you need to be a two-way team to win in March. You cannot be offensively limited and you cannot be defensively limited, right? If you're offensively limited, you look like Iowa State always does in the tournament, or Houston, where you're going to defend. Now, Houston last year, like tough break, losing Jamal Shead, obviously, but you defend your ass off. But when you face another team that can defend like that, you've run into kind of like now it's a ugly game and you have to try and outscore somebody who can also defend you, so you're not as susceptible, or the other team is not as susceptible to like getting beat by you because they can't score, but they're also forcing you not to score because their defense is good enough. That's a horrible way to describe that. Essentially, if you are good on defense and bad on offense and you run into another team that's going to defend, then you have to win really ugly. And then you're going to have to find a way to battle and find a way to make shots and just hope that their offense isn't better than yours. On the flip side, if your offense is really good and your defense isn't, then you're Alabama last year, then you're Kentucky this year, Florida this year. Well, Florida's got a much better defense. Don't want to discredit Florida. Their defense is awesome. Kentucky this year, Alabama last year. When you run into a team, Alabama ran through the tournament last year because just they were so fast and nobody could stop their offense. Then they ran into a team in UConn who could match their offensive intensity, who could match them offensively, who had guys that could take the Alabama players one-on-one, and they had Donovan Clingan. Like, Alabama had no match for him regardless, but you run into a team that can do something similar to you and you're not good on both, you're not a two-way team, that's where you run into a problem. Where do I think St. John's is going to run into problems? When they play against a team with a top-tier defense that has a better offense than them. And that's silly, and it's a weird way to describe that. But when they run into a team that can match their defensive intensity, are they going to be able to get enough points? Are they going to be able to score enough? Are they going to be able to kind of out-offense their opponent in a game like that? The biggest version we will see of this is when they go to Marquette, last game of the season. I believe it's March 8th. Marquette can probably match their defensive intensity, especially on their home floor in Milwaukee. This will be the telltale game for the Johnnies, for the Red Storm. Are they going to be able to score on the road and with a team that can match their defensive intensity? If they can do that, then they'll go far. Because even in a battle of two good defenses, if they come out on top and get enough offense, then you're like, okay, I'm not worried about this team. I think that they can beat anybody. But if they go in, and I know it's in Marquette. They actually beat Marquette at home by 6. But on the road and in a neutral would be very different. So if they go on the road to Marquette and they can't score and their defensive intensity is matched, and Marquette finds a way to outscore them because both teams are kind of playing good defense, that's where I would get worried about this team. Who are some bad matchups for them? Well, anybody at the top of the list in KenPom in terms of defense, right? So think about the teams that you kind of, that you think about with defense this year. Tennessee, Houston, Kansas, Duke is up there, A&M is up there, Iowa State, obviously, Florida, like I just talked about, who I was trying to discredit, St. Mary's, Michigan State, Ole Miss, some of these teams near the top where it's like UC Irvine, by the way, that would be a fascinating 5-12 if they got UC Irvine, because UC Irvine's offense is also not that great. Their defensive intensities could probably match St. John's, so that would be an interesting one to see. If they run into one of these teams They could probably beat UC Irvine because the Anteaters' offense isn't good enough, but that would be a slow defensive grinder game. That would be fun. That would be fun. If they run into one of these teams, I think they'll get through. They could probably get through a 12 seed because they're just going to they could probably just out defend them, even if, or a 13 seed or a 14 or 11, whatever seed line they land on, they could out battle that team, I think, just because of their defensive intensity. But when they get to the second round or the Sweet 16, and you've got that 8 seed that can defend with you, or you've got that, 1 or 2 or 3 seed that you have to eventually play that's matching your defensive intensity, and they also have a better offense than you, that's when you run into a real problem. Like, there's some nightmare matchups for them. If they run into Florida, it's not going to be, I feel terrible for them. If they run into a Houston, if they run into a Duke, if they run into, and you could say that about any team, but it's even tougher for St. John's because their offense is just not going to be able to keep pace. Both of these teams are going to be intense on defense, and there's going to be a lot of energy, but it's like, then you're playing catch up. They're not built to play catch up. They're not built to kind of chase points. They're not built for a shootout. And I worry about that St. John's teams because of this, but I really like where they are. They are super fun to watch if you're a fan of bully ball, and they are a fascinating team come March because there's just not a lot of teams who can defend like them, who can offensive rebound like they can, and who can bully you like they can. They're just so physical. That's going to wrap us up for today. I just wanted to kind of give the Johnnies some spotlight, talk about the fact that they were picked to finish 5th in the Big East, and they're going to probably win the whole thing, at least in the regular season. We'll see what happens come tournament time. I will have some conference tournament picks coming up here probably at the end of the month, which will be cool. And I want to give the Johnnies their flowers because I think that they've deserved it. I am fascinated to see where this team ends up because, boy, a team that can defend like this, defense does win championships. You need some sort of offense to complement it, but I'd love to see this team defend their way to an Elite Eight or a Final Four and really prove the point that, like, with good coaching and good defense, you can go far in a tournament like this. So I'm rooting for the Johnnies. I'm rooting for the Big East. I hope that they do well in the tournament. I just know that there's some nightmare matchups for them out there. With that all being said, thank you so much for watching or listening or wherever you ended up enjoying this episode. Make sure you like it down below. Make sure you comment kind of your thoughts on St. John's. What do you feel about this team? What have you seen from the eye test? Things like that. Hit the subscribe button, all that stuff. Make sure you check out the past videos. There's some good stuff back there. And then make sure, like I said, hit subscribe, check out for the future. Most importantly, though, have a great rest of your day.